There's some rookies on the roster for D-back spring training this year who could blow MLB open in 2026. And nobody is talking about them? We're talking all that and more right now on the T-Backs podcast.
Baseball is back. Perdomo makes the play.
And a high fly ball. No doubt about this. Home run Marte.
They're going to send the ball all the way around. Corbin Carroll with an inside the park answer back.
It's Alec Thomas from the Diamondbacks.
Former Major League Baseball player Luis Gonzalez.
I'm Torey Lavello, and you're listening to the T-Backs Podcast.
T-Backs Podcast.
T-Backs Podcast.
Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the T-Backs podcast, where we bring you all the hottest Arizona Diamondbacks tea and talk from across the pond here in London. We are proud to be, as always, Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast. And it's a big week for all of us as it is finally February, which means two things. One, that our Arizona Diamondbacks play baseball this month, with pitchers and catchers reporting for duty in less than a fortnight. And perhaps more importantly, yours truly will be there at Salt River Fields to take it all in, finding all of the gossip, all of the hot takes, all of the rumors, and ultimately getting you clued up on everything the Diamondbacks are going to have going on in 2026. Of course, either side of the World Baseball Classic with Great Britain, which I'm also so excited for. Less than 30 days away now on that too. I've got my cup of tea freshly brewed here, and in honor of the start of the new season, I've got something very special in the cup. It's called Wizards Whatchamacallit, and it's from the incredible folks over at Lucky Leaf Teas, who I had a bit of a spending spree with at MegaCon London last week. In case you didn't know, I'm also a big comic book fan, so I went on a bit of a spending spree at con, dropped some money, got some fancy-themed tea, and it's a green tea blend with cornflower and bergamot, and it's absolutely delicious, and I'm already getting sidetracked on this episode. Let's crack on. The Snakes have dropped their full 72-man roster for spring camp at the start of the weekend, and as you might expect, I've spent the full 48 hours getting stuck into all of the numbers, trying to work out exactly what kind of package we can expect to see on the 40-man roster come opening day. Of course, the usual MLB level guys will all be taking part, and it'll be so good to see everyone again after an off-season where we weren't sure if half those guys would be in a D-backs uniform this year. Ketel Marte, obviously, is especially good to see him coming back. But there have also been a couple of faces who have departed the offseason, Jake McCarthy heading to Colorado, and Zach Gallen, as things stand, still a free agent, although never say never. There are a lot of publications who think a reunion in the desert is looking even more likely, and then you get some guys who we know will be starting the year on the injury list as well, so won't really be around Salt River. Guys like Corbin Burns, Lourdes Guerrero Jr., Justin Martinez, AJ Puk, everyone who got injured last year who's still not quite back. But you will also surely be seeing loads of tickets being sold so Serpientes fans can get their first look at the likes of Nolan Arenado in a D-backs jersey upon his return from the World Baseball Classic duty with Puerto Rico, which is, as I said a couple of weeks ago in my impromptu podcast from my sheltered bedroom, an incredibly exciting signing. But then, and that's what we're going to talk about today, we're going to get to the prospects and the non-roster invitees. There's some familiar faces there with younger guys like Taiwan's Yumin Lin or long-term top 5 prospect Ryan Waldschmidt, whom everyone is predicting to crack the majors this year pretty rapidly, especially with Lourdes on the sidelines. And I'm pretty excited about him too, not gonna lie. We're going to get a good look for the first time at young pitchers Mitch Bratt and Cole Drake, who were both part of the Merrill Kelly trade to Texas. And they both have a good shot at being useful rotation depth this year. As Corbin Burns said last year, no team survives a Major League season using only 5 starters. So while it would be rough if we were to endure another injury-ruined season when it comes to starting pitchers, it is exciting to think of the talent that we've got coming to camp for the first time this spring. But that brings me on to some names outside the mainstream hype channels. Having spent some time deep diving into this roster and with the help of some cracking stats accounts like D-backs Prospects, and yes, that's Prospects with a Z, over on X, and some helpful Redditors in Reno, Amarillo, and Hillsborough, I think there's some guys who will fly under the radar between now and that first spring training game, but who have more than a little chance of making a big splash. The Diamondbacks are more than spoiled for choice when it comes to utility infield candidates, with Tim Tower and Ildemaro Vargas, the first names off the top of your head, who almost certainly will add to their Major League service time in 2026. Behind them, you've got obviously exciting names like Tommy Troy, who, like his alliterative teammate Tower, say that 3 times fast, can bring any team elite speed and play pretty much anywhere, with familiar Reno mainstay Ivan Melendez also likely to showcase a bit of pop. However, the Hispanic Titanic has himself a rival coming up from Amarillo who can play both sides of the infield. Dubbed by some as possibly the most underrated name in the system, Ben McLaughlin is quietly making a name for himself. He's got a good eye for pitches, he makes excellent contact, and showcases incredible bat-to-ball awareness and adaptability with a 131 WRC plus and 391 WOBA. The former Arkansas Razorback is developing very nicely indeed. And speaking of absolutely colossal power threats, another minor league contract with a spring training invite is first baseman Lucan Baker, who brings 3 years of big league service time with the Cardinals with him. He stands at 6'4" with 285 pounds and was, going back a little while, a second-round draft pick out of TCU. And while he is expected to make a living in 2026 mashing the left field wall in Reno with a projected line of over 20 home runs and a potential of OPS over 900, he's stepping into a spot left vacant by Trey Mancini's departure, who I'm still bitter never quite got a shot to fill Josh Naylor's shoes with the Diamondbacks last year. But if Baker puts it all together for more consistently than in the previous years, you could be looking at an option for the 3 spot on the Major League infield if we don't resign Paul Goldschmidt, Lord forbid, and Pavin Smith and Tyler Locklear continue to underperform as the platoon. Another name you're probably pretty familiar with, Lujames Groover, is pretty well known in Snakes prospects discussions at this point as well. He's coming off a 2025 when he won Texas League batting title, posted a .309 average, and while he's not got the most contact compared to an archetypal everyday face at the hot corner, I think if he can continue to develop, we're on to a winner there. But my favourite of the infield Diamondbacks in the rough has to be Christopher Turin, with the Venezuelan second baseman / shortstop splitting his time between AA Amarillo and High A Hillsborough in 2025. He is very strong defensively, but has really made a name for himself when the bat is in his hands, with his 70-grade hit tool focused on making solid contact on each and every swing. Our friend Diamondbacks Prospects has him cracking MLB's top 100 upon the addition of a modicum of extra power, and I don't disagree. The D-back system is stacked with depth at second, but Tommy Troy, Demetrio Cristantes, and JD Dix all in MLB's top 10 by position. But almost everybody I've spoken to about Turin has told me the same thing, that he will be a star someday soon. Moving on to the outfield, and AJ Vukovich is a power threat that anybody who's kept up with events in Reno is familiar with, and he'll be swinging and missing a lot though. Unless some guys like Brad Marcelino, who oversee a lot of the younger guys' development in Arizona, can really develop his pitch recognition. Similarly making appearance after not quite putting it all together yet will be Drew Jones, who, despite having a reputation for underwhelming in the fan base, simply boils down to them being a number 2 pick. I don't really see too many things to complain about with his lines. He makes big strides in Hillsborough last year, and I'm not just speaking literally, although his 6'4" frame lends itself well to his speedy style in the outfield and running the bases. He picked up 2025's Minor League Defender of the Year award and adjusted his swing to great effect, wrapping last year with a .296 average and an .843 OPS with 5 home runs and 56 RBI through 123 games, his highest appearance tally in a season so far in his career. If his durability continues to improve at the same rate every other attribute has done, then Alec Thomas will be watching over their shoulder in centre field very soon if Slade Caldwell and Ryan Waldschmidt aren't playing there already. However, it wouldn't be a T-Backs podcast without me once again getting extremely hyped about Kristian Robinson. 2020's top Diamondback prospect has faced a very long road to where they are, but they're currently sitting at the doorsteps of the Major League at long last. And now they're here, I get the feeling that K-Rob is ready and raring to go. The lanky Bahamian has always had true 5-tool potential, but he really showed it in Reno last year, putting up 17 home runs and a .254 average while swiping 34 bases, putting their speed to good use defensively, and developing their arm much more than in previous years to cannonballs back in from the right field. Now, admittedly, it'll be hard to make a case for him to dislodge Corbin Carroll in right, but my instinct has me feeling K-Rob is more than battle ready to win a chance in the show whilst Lourdes is out, that compared to Waldschmidt, who doesn't have as much experience as Robinson, but also, let's be honest, I'm biased given Kristian Robinson's WBC eligible status for my home nation of Great Britain. Either way, we can watch this space. And K-Rob, if you're watching, please declare for Great Britain a World Baseball Classic. I would be so hyped to see you there. Anyway, tea break. Oh, I know I've said it already, but that is just so good. It's beautiful tea, absolutely beautiful. I'll not go on another tea-related rant, however. I will continue to talk about baseball. Let's talk pitching. The D-backs pitching farm has been up and down roller coaster in the past couple of years. Ranked bottom 5 when it came to pitching development through much of last year, and even with the arrivals of Bratt and Drake alongside David Hageman, who looked pretty solid in fall ball last year, that ranking is creeping up steadily. Enter Landon Sims. He's a right-handed pitcher mostly used in relief who, deservedly, had been labelled something of a dynamo out of college, and despite missing a hefty amount of time due to those dreaded 3 words, Tommy John surgery, he finished his year at AA Amarillo, where he posted a 3.63 ERA and a 4-2 record, which isn't stellar, but I really like his repertoire. It's not exactly exotic with a cut fastball in the mid-90s, but he's got a slider reminiscent of Kevin Ginkel's when he gets it working, and some of him penciled in to be the closer in Reno this year, and he'll be in good company with how many minor league contracts the Diamondbacks are dishing out. Joining him on the bench and in the pen at Salt River Field is former Washington National Derek Law, who is on the opposite end of his career, entering his age 36 season. He joins the spring training roster bringing a wealth of experience, but can definitely relate to his younger compatriots, having also missed most of last year through injury. He's going to be targeting a middle relief spot in the majors, if I were to hazard a guess, and a career 4.2 WAR, a 23-18 record, and a 3.6 ERA at the major league level is nothing to sniff at. Although whether we can extract the level of performance he posted in 2023 and 2024, when he pitched a combined 145 innings while only allowing 55 runs, is somewhat doubtful. Another arm with major league experience we've seen the Diamondbacks take a chance on is Junior Fernandez, who previously has seen time at the top level for the Cardinals and the Pirates, but is yet to really ignite in his career. He currently holds a negative WAR and a 5.17 ERA across 50 games, with his last appearance in the Bigs going way back to 2022. Blimey, that makes me feel old if way back is 2022. Anyway, since then he's played for the Aguilas in the Dominican Winter League, a number of AAA outfits, the Chiba Lotte Marines in Japan, a couple more AAA stints, and most recently wrapping a return to the Dominican Republic this past off-season, where he posted an ERA of 2.40 in 16 games. He is a big guy with extreme strength in his arm and a fastball that has been known to touch triple digits, but is reliably high 90s anyway, while wielding a low 90s changeup and an 88 mile-an-hour slider. Now, this all sounds okay, but he really struggles with one key thing, and I think that's the thing that sort of is the big hold-up, and that is his command. And he's not really young enough like a Justin Martinez type of guy to overhaul the process and make his natural power work at this stage of his career. He'll almost certainly start the year in Reno, but given how many impressive names will be shooting up for the Aces this year, I think he could benefit from being on a team that's more used to winning than he's ever experienced in his career, and he may be a contender to Landon Sims for the closer spot there, although I see him more as like a shutdown 7th inning type of guy. A similar journeyman mold pitcher arrived on January 8th, with former Blue Jay, Pirate, Royal, and Minnesota Twin Thomas Hatch putting pen to paper on a minor league deal. 31-year-old Hatch has over 100 innings of big league ball under his belt, totaling a 5.24 ERA, an 18% strikeout rate, just under 11% walk rate, but has struggled for success despite a strong ground ball style. His 4 seasons as starter in AAA, though, have been solid, and he also spent a year with the Hiroshima Carp of the NPB. He's been compared to the Nabil Crismat or Casey Kelly kind of mold, and that's more than welcome in my book, especially given how underrated Crismat was for us in a split starter/long relief role last year. Let's not forget, Nabil Crismat, 3-0 perfect win record last year, guys. Now, Sean Dubin, or Dubbin, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but, straight up Dubbin sounds pretty cool, so we're going to go with that, arrives in Arizona following stints in the majors with the Astros and then more recently the Orioles. At face value, his career minus 0.3 WAR doesn't really get my blood pumping, and neither does a 4.81 career ERA. But I still feel that getting shelled in the majors is better than having no experience at all. Even better in my esteemed opinion is the fact that Sean is a 6-pitch Arsenal guy, with a 4-seamer sitting around 95 miles an hour, a 93 sinker, an 83 cutter, and then he also rolls in a sweeper, a curve, and a changeup. Overall, that gives him a 19.3 K percentage last year and a 7.6 base on balls percentage in 33 innings last year. Now, yes, that's hardly Mariano Rivera territory, but he's still an extremely useful swingman candidate. Next up, Isaiah Campbell is a name most fans of the Red Sox came to know in the latter end of last year, with the Portuguese-born reliever making 6 appearances out of the pen for Boston. He wasn't great. He finished the year with a 7.04 ERA and negative 0.1 WAR, but in AAA it was much of a different story. He's primarily a 3-pitch guy with a cut fastball, his primary pitch, but what really catches you is his mid-80s curveball that generates a staggering 40.4 whiff rate for the Worcester Woo Sox last year. And yes, it is Worcester, not Worcester, for all of you Americans in the comments. Anyway, he finished 31 games out of his 43 appearances and picked up 6 saves on his way to a 7-7 record. You can absolutely expect to see him in the Diamondbacks pen this year, and I'm really confident in him on top of all the hype, quite simply because he didn't spend time out with injury last year, unlike almost every other bullpen pickup we've made this hot stove season. Speaking of which, let's talk Jonathan Loaisiga, and I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong, but we'll roll on. Everyone has him listed as the Diamondbacks' bridge closer, and I'm assigned to agree. The former New York Yankee, who has one of the best nicknames in baseball, he is affectionately dubbed Johnny Lasagna, is a really tidy pickup, forming 30 appearances in the Big Apple last year. He's got a strong sinker and a really funky curveball as the two stand-up pieces of his arsenal, and if he can stay fit for the first 3 to 4 months of the season, I see him easily taking some of the load off of young guys like Andrew Solfrank towards the latter end of the bullpen, who, Solfrank's certainly talented, but is under a lot of pressure to fill the closer boots. And it's hard to argue with calling upon 7 years of MLB service as a steady hand on the wheel. Now, I'm of the opinion that bullpen depth is never a bad thing, as we saw towards the middle and tail end of last season, when we were calling up Reno every couple of days asking them to send anyone who could grip a baseball, and then praying that they would last out of the pen. We'll be seeing a few of the names that answer the call in spring training 2026. Taylor Rashi was one name I was glad to see return with his incredibly funky 71-degree delivery. And I think we're yet to see the best out of Juan Murillo as well. Philip Abner clearly has a high ceiling, despite the southpaw being slightly shelled in his 5-game stint in the Bigs last year. Whereas John Curtis, as we've seen before, is a distinctly league average arm that's not unwelcome, although he won't exactly set the pen alight. But again, there is so much to be learned in spring training. I'm really going to try and cover as many of the interesting pieces of the puzzle here as possible, but it really is all over the place. 32 non-roster invitees, as you probably have guessed, compared to 19 last year, is a lot for a roster. And yeah, we can establish some of that to filling the slots of the 40-man and the guys starting the IL. But I also think it's clear to anyone with any kind of bullpen knowledge that we are going to keep throwing pitches at the bullpen gaps to see what sticks. And maybe there's a plan. Maybe there's like some secret sauce that Mike Hazen is cooking up. But it's kind of hard to see what it is. We've got very much an interesting mix of different pitchers coming in, signing minor league deals. But, several of the possible free agent relievers that we've mentioned previously on the show have since signed with clubs. Most notably, Sir Anthony Dominguez, who picked up a 2-year deal from the White Sox last Friday. But it's really interesting in the fact that several of the Diamondbacks bullpen last year, the likes of Jalen Beeks and Shelby Miller, who, yes, I know both have injury issues, remain available from a relatively successful pen last year before it all fell apart. Other names like Jose Leclerc and Andrew Chafin are also guys I've brought up previously, but the kind of a new name who's, given that it's really slim pickings out there right now, that's sort of come across my radar, is a long-time stalwart of the evil empire over in Los Angeles, one Evan Phillips. He's also on the market and supposedly is quite likely to re-sign with the Dodgers, but in that case, once again, we would be taking on a recent injury risk. Outside of that, I don't really love our options. Then again, that's what spring training is all about. Guys really coming in, stamping their authority from seemingly out of nowhere, and getting their shot in the big leagues. Let's not forget that nobody outside of the organizational development staff really had much of a whiff that Blaze Alexander would be a major league roster staple coming off of a worryingly weak defensive showing in 2024. But he was the Eugenio Suarez replacement that kept Jordan Lawler off the roster more than he should have, solely because Torrey had something, like he saw in Blaze something that, in that Cactus League performance, it warranted the faith that was shown in him, and I think it really, really paid off. Blaze had a solid year last year. He found a bit of pop in his bat, he had good contact, but his defense was so much better, like leagues better than what it had been, and that was really actually quite a relief to see. But, of course, the downside of that is it meant Jordan Lawler got less playing time. And speaking of Lawler, this is set to be his first spring training with us after graduating from his prospect eligibility, with everybody hoping he can finally find some form. But even when you consider the fact he's been learning to play the outfield in Winter League this year, he wasn't really performing well. At one point, he was 7-42 with a slash line of 167, 217, 432. And to be honest, guys, that has me worried. I've made no secret of believing J-Law has more value to us as a trade piece, but Jordan, if you're listening, I'm very keen to be proven wrong. It's sort of one of those things where, if Blaze Alexander can, come through and discover some incredible form out of nowhere, then I'm pretty sure Jordan Lawler can as well. But it was very different watching Blaze Alexander just be, above average in Reno versus the kind of electric form that Jordan Lawler has when playing for the Aces. He's, absolutely incredible, and I think he's very much benefited from playing alongside guys like the all-time greatest Reno ace, Ildemaro Vargas, but he just doesn't translate it into the major league level at all. Like, admittedly, he was better on his second and third stints in the big as opposed to when we first called him up, but, he was still sitting fastball, and could not hit MLB level breaking balls and couldn't really get up to speed with the level of baseball he was being asked to play, and that's a concern. If, he's come and had a shocking time in the Winter League this year, that's worrying me. However, it could also be the case that he's got all of his bad baseball out of his system already, and now is going to move on and all of a sudden be incredible and in the major leagues. And, I'm here for that too. I'm here for the Jordan Lawler finally making good on all his potential, the redemption arc. I would love to see it, guys. But, that's sort of why we have spring training. I'm super excited to get out there. It's going to be my first time getting back to watch a Diamondbacks game since before the trade deadline last year. I had a quick trip over to Arizona in like the late summer last year before everything like really fell off the rails. But I won't be back at Chase Field. I'll be heading back to the UK before the season really gets in full swing. But again, World Baseball Classic in the middle of 2 stints in Arizona spring training. Sign me the hell up. I'm so excited. And unless there's some big major breaking news, this may be like the last podcast I end up recording until I actually get back out into Arizona. I'd love to keep it to like a regular upload schedule, but as we ramp up to spring training, we're going to have to see if there are any stories involved. I could just cover, World Baseball Classic announcements. Please, guys, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd have any interest in. Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte, both suiting up for the World Baseball Classic. You've got some guys, like Kristian Robinson, who, eligible for Great Britain. There's recent Arizona Diamondbacks draft pick Wallace Clark, born in the UK, eligible for Great Britain. Would love to see him get involved. I don't know whether that's supremely likely given that he's like only just out of college, but there's also some really interesting college guys eligible for Great Britain, like guys like James Quinn Irons, also recently selected draft pick as well. And let me know if you guys want us like a breakdown of the Great Britain roster at some point, because there's some really cool names being rumored. We've already got Harry Ford announced. Some people are saying Jazz Chisholm. People are saying, is somebody like Aroldis Chapman eligible for Great Britain through Jamaican citizenship? Wouldn't that be something? All of a sudden, one of the greatest Cuban baseball players of all time suiting up for Great Britain. That's kind of a bit random, but, I'm here for the energy. So let me know if that'd be something you guys would be interested in hearing me chat about, because if there's one thing I know how to talk about, perhaps almost on the level of the amount I can talk about Diamondbacks baseball, it's Great Britain baseball. You guys may have seen, I host some content over on the Great Britain Baseball social media channels. I'll be doing the same again throughout the World Baseball Classic over in Houston. If you see me in Houston, come and have a chat as well. I'd love to hear what you guys are up to through the World Baseball Classic as well. I'm going to be at some point buying people lots of beers, lots of whatever passes for tea in Houston, and probably quite a lot of barbecue as well. That's turned into a bit of a tangent, but hey, it's a podcast. I record all of this live. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to say. We're going to wrap it up there. I want to say thank you very much for listening. As always, this has been Benji, aka at GB Diamondback, on the T-Backs podcast. You can follow us on pretty much any social media platform. We are at T-Backs podcast on X, on Instagram, and at T-Backs on TikTok, where you can get a little glimpse into the life of what it's like being a baseball fan based out of the UK. And the answer is it's completely wild. Sometimes I never know what's going on, but it's pretty cool. Make sure you go and follow us on any platform of your choosing. Thank you very much for listening. Please make sure you're following and subscribed on whatever it is that you're listening to the show, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.